Okay, so the current NFC playoff teams, when I originally wrote this, I now have to adapt it because San Francisco, thanks for nothing there for that game. And I only mean for entertainment purposes, not for Vikings purposes. I suppose it's better if they lost any NFC team. But for entertainment purposes, that's the one where I was like getting my snacks, like,
yeah,
all right, I'm ready for this. I grinded through that first 3.5 hours. Like, let's do this. And then that was a good half of football, I guess. So in the
most
NFC
entertaining
playoffs,
game of the day, and it turned out to be bad.
I really thought that San Francisco's defense would hold tight at least a little bit, but it is Chiefs, it is Bills, and I will throw the Bengals in that mix as well. And everybody else is just existing for those teams to get in the way. So, okay, so let's just compare every NFC playoff team to the Vikings. I don't think we need to have a discussion about Philly because Philly is better than the Vikings.
Yep.
Head-to-head, record-wise, there's no real debate there. But the rest of them, I think there is. So I'm going to go one by one. You tell me what you think. Vikings, and this is not their matchups. This is just the other NFC playoff teams in comparison. Vikings and Seattle Seahawks. Who is better in that one?
Well, I would want to say, based off just matchups, kind of looking at it without really diving in, it's the Vikings. But the way the Seahawks play as a team, that feels like a team that will just, it does not matter where they're going. It does not matter who they're playing. They are going to beat you up. They're playing, it seems like, phenomenal defensive football. And they're behind Geno Smith, which who knew that would happen after 8 years of not playing an NFL game. Geno Smith has that offense going, whether they have DK Metcalf or not. I think that's a really tough matchup. I want to lean towards Vikings, though, because of the way they've played at times. But yeah, I'm going to say Seahawks in this one. I know I'm flip-flopping, but I'm going to say Seahawks here.
Okay, yeah, you start off saying Vikings and then changed your mind. The deciding
it's so tough
factor.
With those two teams.
So it's two teams that took different directions, and this is maybe a longer discussion for a fans only pod or something. But the Seattle Seahawks. Remember, the whole point about criticizing some of the things the Vikings did was you don't have to do this in order to still compete. Like, you don't have to extend players that aren't giving you what they used to give you, or you don't have to sign older players and you could still compete. And the evidence is in Seattle. Like, they are still very competitive, and they have a guy who's a longtime backup with some younger players that they've drafted, like Kenneth Walker stepping up. Very impressive game from him. The Seahawks are getting better quarterback play than the Vikings right now. And if I'm making a decision on these two teams, I kind of have to give them the slight edge because of that. And I know the record is different by a couple of wins, but we talked about how the Vikings wins are against all teams that have not winning records, at least prior to the game between Miami and Pittsburgh. And Miami's getting Tua back. They did not have Tua against the Vikings. So I think that the answer might be Seattle. I think it's very, very close to even, though. Very close to even, especially if you don't fully buy into what Geno Smith is. But what an impressive victory today, though. The Chargers, 37 points on that defense, which is pretty stacked, and they put a lot of money into in the offseason, a top-notch quarterback. I mean, that's the thing. Geno is outplaying Kirk Cousins at this moment, and if you take the most impressive win by either team, it just happened today by Seattle. So I would have to give a slight edge to the Seahawks for those reasons. Let's go on to the next team is Tampa Bay. I mean, at this moment, there's no case for Tampa Bay being better than the Vikings.
No, that's all Vikings. They play a better brand of football. Tom Brady, as we've just mentioned, does not look like he cares to be there at all. And even if he retires mid-season, that brings a whole nother set of storylines and distractions and media questions for all those players to handle. So even if Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask do play better than Tom Brady, it's just going to be a whirlwind of distractions there. I think for this one, it's easily the Vikings, as you said. There's really no comparison here between these two teams.
I just want to say I didn't even check if Kyle Trask is still on their team, by the way. That's just
Pro Football Reference has him listed as their third quarterback. So
okay. Well, because Kellen Mond's not on the Vikings anymore, it sort of rung in my head like, well, I haven't heard anything about him, but nor should I, since Tom Brady is their quarterback. You usually don't hear much about QB3. Okay, the Giants. This is an interesting one because a lot of the same stuff that's said about the Vikings can be said about the Giants. Their Packers win does not look as impressive. They beat a improved Jaguars team that I keep trying to love, and the Jaguars will not love me back. They have lost a lot of close games where Trevor Lawrence has looked improved, but they just don't have enough. So they grit out another very close win, as the Giants have all year long. They start the season by winning on a 2-point conversion. They went on the final play in Green Bay. It comes down to the very end against Jacksonville as well. So their wins aren't exactly crushing other teams. There's a lot of similarities here. In fact, even their quarterback play, where they've tried to protect Daniel Jones quite a bit in that offense with a running game, that's the type of stuff we talk about with the Vikings. Their defense has been quite good, I would say, for the Giants and their offensive line as well. So how do you size up these two teams?
I think for me, like the Seahawks one, it comes down to quarterback play and who I trust more in a single game between these two teams, and it's Kirk Cousins because he has better weapons. I think overall, especially throwing the ball, he has better weapons than Daniel Jones does. Yes, Daniel Jones has Saquon Barkley in the backfield, but we've seen running back play and how the value of that has kind of diminished over the past couple of years. I would trust Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and maybe if they ever get to that point of getting Odell Beckham Jr., but that's also not in this part of the conversation. But I like the weapons that Kirk Cousins has to throw to over Daniel Jones, so I'm going to trust that Kirk Cousins could do it in one game against the Giants. So I'll go Vikings here.
I do think that Daniel Jones has closed the gap significantly on where you would put him versus Kirk Cousins. Now, I expect Cousins to get better as the season goes along, so this is a factor. So if we're comparing right now, I think it's a slight edge to the New York Giants because of their defense, where the Vikings defense is just not trustworthy. I mean, they can give up 150 yards to a top receiver at any time. And the Giants defense has been consistently excellent, really, from day one. I think they have more talent on that defense, and they're playing better at this moment. I think both coaches deserve a ton of praise, Brian Daboll and Kevin O'Connell, with the way that they have kind of taken franchises that were down in the dumps, got a lot of people to buy into what they're saying. To me, it's very, very even, though. I think you mentioned the Justin Jefferson factor. That's big. That's a really big thing, because you kind of come down to, all right, but who's got the better player that can change a game in an instant, that has just been mostly unstoppable, save for one or two games, and really his career mostly unstoppable. I think this is a dead tie, though. I mean, I don't know how to size this one up exactly. I think we just need a bigger sample size on both teams, because there's still reason, even after this win today, to kind of say, I don't know about those Giants, just like there is to say, I don't know about those Vikings yet. So this one needs time to play out. I'm going to cop out and say TBD on this. I think if I had to go slight edge, I would probably go Vikings with a slight edge, because like you said, the quarterback, Justin Jefferson. But I think that if they played head to head, that Vegas is probably giving this one like kind of dead even. The next one is Dallas. I'm just going to start out here by saying I think Dallas is a better team than the Vikings. I think they're probably a better team by a good margin. And guess who the Vikings matchup would be in the playoffs if they started today? It would be Dallas. Now, they'll have a chance when they play Dallas to prove me wrong on that. But the defensive elite talent, guys in their primes, Diggs, Parsons, the way they get after the quarterback, they're running the football well. Dak Prescott is back. Like, CeeDee Lamb is a superstar. I just think that, like, top to bottom, that is a really, really, really good team that would be in first place with having played a backup quarterback for most of the year. I mean, they could survive that and now be in this position. They get an easy win against the Lions. I think that team is a legit Super Bowl contender. They led the NFL in scoring last year. I mean, they've got some things that the Vikings don't have, and I would give them an edge in a head-to-head matchup.
They've got the second best pass rush team, or best pass rush grade, according to PFF, behind the Buffalo Bills, who are easily, far and away, the best defense in the league. And the Cowboys are the best defense in the NFC. And I think the way that pass rush gets after quarterbacks, like you said, has me very concerned about this matchup should they face each other in the playoffs. Because as we've seen, this offensive line, yeah, they started out great, but over the past couple weeks, that's gotten shakier and shakier as Ed Ingram has realized, oh, the NFL is a whole different level, and Garrett Bradbury's play has started to fall back to earth or back to his normal numbers a little bit. So that pass rush kind of does it for me and gives this one easily to the Cowboys. I don't care if it's at US Bank Stadium or not. This one goes to the Cowboys.
They have the thing that has always beaten the Kirk Cousins Vikings. Simply. Like, that's it. That you mentioned it. Against the Dolphins, a team that was really not very good at covering against the pass, they were able to almost completely shut down the Vikings offense just by getting after the quarterback. The Vikings don't have an answer if someone shuts down their run game and gets after the quarterback. And then I think that, at this point in their careers, Prescott's probably got a little bit of an edge on Cousins. It might not be as big as some people give it, but I think it's still it's a decent size edge. If they both play their best football, it's probably close, but Prescott's just a little bit younger. It's mostly really about that defense, though. I mean, The Vikings defense is still highly questionable after giving up 468 yards to the Dolphins and having to kind of luck into a bounce interception, a fumble. That's not going to happen every week. So, yeah, I'll say that the Cowboys are better. And the last one is the Rams, which to me is maybe somewhat close, but it's probably the Vikings over the Rams. The Rams offensive line is super miserable at this point. Lots of injuries. They lost Andrew Whitworth. The one thing that does make you hesitate is that Aaron Donald still exists. Yeah. And so if we're talking about who's the better overall team, it's the Vikings. I don't even think there's a debate there. But head to head, can one man ruin an entire team's life? He certainly can. And he did last year when the two teams played. Stafford threw 3 picks. And they won because Aaron Donald ripped their heads off and beat them with them. So that's always possible. But I don't think the Rams are very good. I actually think the 49ers are probably better unless Odell Beckham shows back up in LA.
Yeah, I think that the Aaron Donald factor plays so much into this one because the conversation we just had with the Cowboys, that pass rush, especially up the middle, has always made Kirk Cousins just look like a very below average quarterback. And Aaron Donald can certainly do that, especially with big moments on the line, especially in the playoffs. So that one does it for me for the Rams. But I would say overall, like you said, the overall roster screams Minnesota at this point because that offensive line for the Rams is just not holding up for Matthew Stafford. And we saw after years and years and years in Detroit what a bad offensive line can do to him, can make him look just bang average as opposed to the guy we saw last year lead a team to the Super Bowl. So I would say I would lean Vikings, but that Aaron Donald factor scares the crap out of me if I'm the Vikings.
But I also do think that what Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter showed is if they face a below average offensive line, they are also going to destroy people. And I mean, so it's only close kind of because of the superstar talent is still there. Cooper Kupp, of course, and the Vikings can't stop top receivers. I still have to give the edge to the Vikings there. But I also think that if you're the Vikings, you're rooting for the Rams to beat out San Francisco. Mm-hmm. The only thing on that, I don't know, because those two teams are so familiar with how the Rams offense and therefore the Vikings offense works. You kind of wonder about that. And San Francisco has generally done a really good job against the Rams and head to head. And I think part of the reason is because they get after the passer. So if you're the Vikings, even though both those teams have some scary things to them, I think you'd rather end up facing the Rams.